is Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, councilors. And I guess as a reminder, we have the speaker here. I don't know if those are speakers up there, but in case there's anyone listening at home, we have to remember to speak up a little bit so that they can hear us. Especially if Councilor Lickey, I don't see her. We need to be audible to her at a minimum. So our next item, the active agenda, item 8, volunteer building, considering the offers to purchase the volunteer performing arts center by prospective purchasers. This is an action item. We have representatives from Silver Creek Realty Group here with us today, Realtor Gary Bergen. So, Deb, I'm going to ask you behind you, Gary. Deb, are you doing anything? You don't have to. You just say no. Shake your head no. Or can you? Okay, just I don't have a name on here, so maybe we can ask Gary if you could give us an update to the council, please.
Vander.
That's your choice.
Okay. And Tammy Myers is here with me. So we've had an extensive amount of interest in the building. Calls from all over the United States. We probably field on average 4 to 6 a day, kind of on average. I've had as much as 10 phone calls a day. Every one of those, we pretty much sent out all the detailed packet that the city provided to us. Yesterday, we showed 3 different interested groups. We're trying to minimize the amount of times we're exposed to that building and have to go inside and disrupt everything. We do have a letter of intent in hand from a real estate broker out of the Seattle area. She's offered the full asking price. She has the funds. We verified that. We do have a copy of her bank account statement. I think her intended use sounds like she would pretty much gut the building to the stone walls and the foundation, rebuild the inside completely, raising the ceiling height of the basement to probably around 9-10 feet. Make it a beautiful high-end restaurant on the lower level, upper level, potentially even 2 floors of higher-end apartments. Not a high number of apartments, but some really nice ones. Keeping the center area where the dome is and the chandelier open for common use area. She sounds like she knows what she's doing and has the experience to go ahead and move forward and rebuild and do it properly. She's a little bitty lady in heels, and she crawled around in the attic with me yesterday and saw the actual damage. Didn't seem to be scared away. Did tell us straightforward she wants to move forward with her offer. One of the other parties yesterday that looked also sounds like he's fully capable of doing this, has expertise in the area. Didn't really have an end use in mind. Had a couple of ideas, but nothing solid. He drove back to Marysville yesterday. And we've been playing phone tag today. He doesn't want to talk more about it, but that's as far as we've gotten. So I haven't really been able to make contact with him. I think I got 2 more calls today. I don't know if you got any.
I had 2 yesterday.
Okay. So, I mean, they're continually coming in constant. But this one, for the first letter, I know I couldn't ask for anything better from our end. I know one issue, and I had sent a letter, I think it's in your packet, is parking. We know we want this off the city's books, but the city's regulations are going to require parking for something that goes in there. Especially apartments, yeah. And so our suggestion, and of course it's just a suggestion, is maybe come up with some kind of plan to start looking for parking. If that can be the park next door, I think that would be the ideal. And I know there's an extensive process with declaring it surplus and going through all the motions of that. I had spoken to Athena about the potential buyer about if it was an option to lease parking, if she would be open to that. She says she absolutely is, just depending on the terms. But I know that's going to be a hurdle, and it's been brought up by probably at least 2/3 of the buyers I've personally spoken to. Is okay, we have an idea, but where are we going to park? And are we going to be required to park somewhere?
Councilor Lickey, can you hear us all right?
Can't hear you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
there we go.
Well, if I could just throw an idea out here just to keep the discussion going. Gary and Tammy, just west of there, about a half a block, is an old basketball court at Father Purdy Field. And I don't know what the hospital is gonna do with that, but that might be a location of the parking lot, people can walk 200 feet to get there. As another option.
Yeah, we weren't aware of that, so that's,
Yeah, and so for the counselors, let's just have an open discussion and don't worry about going through the chair and we can be polite to each other. So Counselor Schroeder.
I actually do know a little bit about that property. It is in a land medical trust, and they are looking to do something with it, and I kind of tried to keep in touch with Joel to see if they made any efforts in that one part, but the group that had their garden there this last year told me the other day, just in conversation, that they had another year with their garden. So they're planning to do something there. I wouldn't count on that one. They basically, I even tried to buy it. And it didn't work, but, because it's in this trust and it has to be used, I think, for medical purposes as an auxiliary to the hospital. But anyway, I wouldn't count on that as being an option.
So this might be a question that you might be able to answer here. Is there a difference between when we put it up for like auction versus now we're going through a realtor, as far as it just, auctions maybe don't get as much publicity, that they didn't see it, you know? I'm just curious.
If you want me to give you an answer, I think we've got a great team and Gary and Tim, they've done a phenomenal job for us, and either one of them would be better able to answer that question, or Deb Lewis, I see her hand up back there, but either one of those. Oh, Candy, let's put her hand up too, that's 4.
I'm like, anybody, I don't care.
Do you want us to answer or do you want them to answer first?
Who was it that raised their hand?
I'm Deb Lewis.
Oh, Deb, thank you.
Financial Services
Yeah.
Manager.
Yeah, what's the process, the difference between the process of the auction versus, I mean, obviously.
Well,
you
the
guys didn't get it
auction,
out.
they did highly advertise it and it went to over 15,000 views. So it did get quite a bit, but it does seem at this point that the group right now is getting more exposure. So we had a lot of interest in both ways of doing it, between the auction or now on the MLS. But we've only been a few weeks, right?
It's only 30 days on the auction.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, so.
I'm wondering too, if they maybe feel more comfortable working with, I don't know how well auctions do, so I don't know if it was more of a comfortability too to work with a realtor versus.
Right, and we had to go to auction, that's part of the process.
Yes, code
You have
process,
to do
yeah.
that first.
That makes sense. I don't know if you guys had anything to add, but I was just kind of curious for the public's sake of why are we now all of a sudden getting all these people wanting versus when we had put it on auction for even less, obviously, so.
well, from our experience on the auctions, people have to go to that site to look. Where we have an extensive reach. It's not just the MLS, which is local here, but through our company, it explodes, plus we pay for websites that are commercial-only listing sites. Those are where your investors are looking. I mean, there's a few that I talked to, well, I saw it on auction and it was this price, but now I see this. But the majority of them, they have no clue it was out there. If they're not specifically going to a surplus auction site, they'll never know it's for sale.
I see.
But they're investors, they're always looking at all of these other commercial websites for property.
But we also advertise it as a residential option, so that exposes it to a different market too.
Sure. It seems to me that I know that this particular potential buyer was asking about properties where they'd be able to have parking. And I know the park that is adjacent to that is something to certainly think about. But there's also some issues of people who are neighbors who, maybe Shannon, I don't mean to.
I did not raise my hand.
I know you did, but we had a conversation about this, and there was an issue that people who are adjacent to the Bollinger building have been using that back area to get to their properties, right? Do you remember that conversation, Shannon? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Merry Christmas.
Shannon Grove, Community Development Director, City of Lewiston. So when you look at the aerial photo of this site, you will notice that behind it or to the north, that there's kind of, it looks like an alley. And that is access for the neighboring property next door to the east. So I think that's what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we were to look into potentially splitting the park to where there would be adequate parking for that structure, then we probably have to come up with something to ensure that the neighbors would still be able to have access to their back area, is that right?
Oftentimes neighbors have easements on their property that you can't build on, so that it allows for other properties to get access on them. But that's really determined between property owners.
So is that access owned by the city or owned by the,
It's owned by the city, it's on the city's property, it's on the Bollinger
and they have
site's
an easement to
property.
use it?
I think Mark looked into that and we did not find an easement,
They just use it.
correct?
Was the condition for the offer dependent on this, on having that extra, is that, how she made that quite clear?
Yeah, it's not well, it is included that there would be parking available.
So either way, for her to wanna move forward, we have to figure out a way, obviously, to give her adequate parking.
I mean, basically, unless you turn it into a single-family home,
Either way.
the city's gonna require her to have some type of parking, so she has no choice.
Yeah.
So she didn't necessarily make it contingent on, but she wants that conversation started. Yeah, there needs to be parking. And she knows she's gonna have to go through a conditional use permit process.
So with the apartment, 2 apartments and a restaurant, how many parking spots is that?
The 2 apartments would require 2,
And then the restaurants,
whatever, yeah.
A cafe, 1 parking stall per 4 seats. So this is just to give you some context. The planners have been asked questions over time about this piece of property as well. It does not allow for a mixed use of commercial multifamily by right, so if this cafe was something that the prospective buyer wanted to pursue, they would have to go through the conditional use permit process. So, I don't think that you are, through this sale, you don't get to say, and we will let you do this.
Right.
Right.
So I just
No,
wanted
no,
to caution everybody on that piece, that some of these uses that are proposed or talked about aren't automatically allowed.
As far as too, what goes in the building, we're held to that too, as we can't dictate what goes in the building, I mean, right? I mean,
Correct.
what their intention of it doesn't matter, as long as they have the money to buy it, as far as I understand that, so.
If it's allowed by zoning, yeah.
Correct, yeah,
Yep.
sorry, excuse me, yeah.
Correct.
Oh,
I think the type of restaurant that she's looking at is more of a couple days a week. You know, she said higher end, not like a fast food, not open 7 days a week kind of thing. This is more of a specialty kind of deal, kind of like Saute, just, you know, in Clarkston, where it's only a few nights a week. Wouldn't be high impact to traffic to the neighborhoods. Nothing like the Civic Theater was to the area.
I mean,
Right.
the cool thing I will say about it though is that she is wanting to keep the building, which a lot of people in Lewiston I know are very passionate about that building and the history behind it. So being that she's wanting to keep that structure is kind of a cool way forward. Now just figuring out how to make it work for her needs so that she can accomplish that goal.
I feel a few calls just from people saying, I'm not a buyer, just please don't tear it down. I
I'm
don't
sure
have
you
any say in
did.
that, but
Yeah,
I'll take that into account.
makes sense. I mean, so what do we do now? Then what is the action that we can take, I guess, from this point?
Well, Counselor, you could make a motion, it's outlined there. If you want to take a minute to read that. But I would also say that, you know, if anyone in the audience has any concerns before that motion is made, now's the time to speak up. Because we don't want to, I think, give anyone false hopes or make bad decisions, so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. Direct city's realtor to prepare a response accepting name.
It's, who?
Ina Hu, letter of intent and direct staff to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement with Athena Hu, and to authorize preparation of other necessary conveyance documents for the city council's consideration.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Towsley, seconded by Councilor Lakey, to direct the city's realtor to prepare a response accepting Athena Hu's letter of intent, direct staff to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement with Athena Hu, and authorize the preparation of the necessary conveyance documents for the city council's consideration. Is there further discussion?
Now, the offer isn't, you said is not contingent upon parking.
But it will be subject to probably her conditional use permit.
Yep.
Approval, which may likely require parking.
And also establish the timeline. She doesn't, nobody wants it to sit for another 5 years. You know, that we want somebody to get on it quickly. But knowing whether or not she has parking will dictate yes or no she can do a restaurant or whatever. So it could slow her progress down a little bit until she knows for sure.
So then it locks it up for whatever that, is it 60 days, 90 days? It'll lock the property up until it's determined on the conditional use permit?
Potentially, yes. This is a little different sale than we normally do, you know, with government involvement. So normally we would have a set timeline of each phase of everything, due diligence and all that. In this one, we don't really have that. So we would just have to, council would have to just say, here's our response, and we need an answer, yes or no, you're gonna move forward. And then it's pretty much just up to legal at that point to write the contract.
And then going through the permit process, planning and zoning. Well, I appreciate you guys' efforts, that's awesome, that we're getting so much, and how much, you guys have got feet on the ground, so we got a good offer.
We appreciate
Awesome.
the opportunity very much.
Good.
Okay, those in favor, please signify by, Councilor Claiborne.
Last minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, I've seen the preliminary financials that have been sent out and stuff like that. I mean, I deal with this stuff all the time. It looks like she's got a fair amount of cash that will be available. I don't think it's enough.
Very possible. She may end up having to get a loan for the finished work.
I mean,
She looks like she's dealing with about $1.5 million to be able to get things going.
well, to get things going. When you finish out, I'll bet it's every bit of 2.5 plus.
And she hasn't stated yes or no, she intends to get a loan. I think it'll just be a matter of, okay, I've run out of funds, now it's time to get more.
Okay,
It's not something typically I think we can base our decision on.
no, I'm just making a point.
Okay, just making sure.
Joel, please introduce yourself for the record. Joel Plaskon, Lewiston City Planner. I was just wondering if the council had any interest in expressing an opinion or desire or not to let any of Trevitt Park go or be used for parking.
I mean, there we go.
I do.
Yeah, I have an interest too.
I do too.
How many slots would that be?
Required?
No, in Trivet Park,
What
how
if-
many
how much
parking
parking?
would?
How many parking spaces would be required? I wouldn't know unless I knew how many seats were in the cafe and how many apartment units with how many bedrooms and that kind of thing.
I just thought maybe you knew how many parking spots we could get in Trivet Park.
I haven't looked at that.
Standing there with that George yesterday, just eyeballing things, leaving perimeter trees, taking out the middle ones kind of thing. We were guessing between 20 and 30 spaces in there. That's a complete guess, but
For how much of that park are you talking about?
pretty much the whole top.
Down below, you'd still have that shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gazebo, the sides would still remain intact, it'd just be just the top.
Which, that is what, if I remember correctly, what people use for photos, is the gazebo, right? Okay. So that would still be there even, possibly for that
Most likely.
purpose. Okay.
And Mayor,
Councilor, City Attorney.
Kayla Herman, City Attorney, and I just want to clarify for the council that as part of the direction, I think from what we're hearing from council is staff can certainly look into that as a possible option. However, it's something that would require coordination with multiple departments, purchasing, Parks and Rec, finance, community development. So that could certainly be a separate matter we could look into, but I just want council to be aware that that would have to be separate from the transaction before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think in an effort of being best for those that are interested in this piece of property and trying to be business friendly to someone that's coming in and willing to do that, is to be as easy as possible as we can to help them make this go seamlessly if we do.
Okay. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, councilors. And thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Tammy and Gary. Councilor Lidkey?
can I ask Kayla a question? Would it be prudent of us to make a motion to direct staff to begin work on looking at that, or do we need that direction now?
I think by the nodding of heads and comments that I've heard, I think that's something that staff, it sounds like there's a consensus already amongst council to look into that further. So I think we have what we need to look into that related, but kind of separate from the motion council already made. So I think we're okay.
Great.
Okay, councilors, next up we have active agenda item 3B, Lewiston Community Center Transit Stop, considering the second amendment to the Federal Transit Administration 5339 Small Urban Funding Agreement number 2020-09 with the Idaho Transportation Department to extend the grant agreement to September 30th, 2025. This is an action item. Thank you, Tammy and Gary. And we have our transit manager, Suzanne Senior, here to share this with us. So I'll turn that over to you. Suzanne, please introduce yourself for the record.
Suzanne Senior, I'm the city transit manager, and this is simply a housekeeping activity. Our agreement ended as of our fiscal year, so I'm just trying to get it active again so that we can continue on with community center transit stop. We are currently supposed to go to bid. First ad goes out right after Christmas. So the bid documents are done, the drawings are done, yay, we're getting there. And we hope to get a good bid by February, and then hopefully this summer, sometime over the summer, we'll see construction happen. So this is just extending the agreement to the end of fiscal year 24, or 25, excuse me.
Okay. Can we just reiterate where the funds are coming from?
Absolutely. So the funding agreement here is for a total of $284,915. Those are funds from the FTA that's funneled through ITD. So that's the 5339 bus and bus facilities grant that they made available.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilor Schroeder?
I move to approve amendment 2 to the FTA 5339, Small Urban Funding Agreement 2020-09 between the City of Lewiston and Idaho Transportation Department.
Moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Forsman to approve Amendment 2 to the FTA 5339 Small Urban Funding Agreement number 2020-09 between the City of Lewiston and Idaho Transportation Department. Is there further discussion? Clerk Brockie?
Council President Lidkey,
Aye.
Councilor Towsley,
Aye.
Councilor Kleber,
Aye.
Councilor Spiegelmeier,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Suzanne. Next, we're going to move into executive session, so we'll have to ask everyone but the city council
Kindly ask you to leave.